Motion carries. That meeting is closed, and we'll move on to the special town board meeting. Does anybody need a break before we move on? We are moving on. Beginning at 9:05 p.m. on December 3rd, 2013, special town board meeting following the public hearing and the budget meeting of the town electors at the Waukesha Town Hall, West 250 South 3567 Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, 53189. The purpose of the meeting is to approve the 2014 budget. Mr. Bankse?
I would make a motion to approve the 2014 budget with that I've provided as a template to the members of the board, with one change in the capital outlay section under account 58212, fire truck, to replace tender 1693 and 1655, to change that number to read $80,000 as the acquired amount for that. The rest of my changes do not need any revision given the tax law.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Okay. May I just clarify the amount that is going to move to $80,000? I'm just making a note.
Discussion. Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, I appreciate the time and effort that you put into that, Supervisor Bankse. I wish we would have had some of your thoughts and input on some of this earlier, because I might well agree with some of the smaller items. I mean, there's quite a bit of kind of nibbling around the edges here, and a lot of that I think is of not great consequence or concern. Again, this is just a target, but there's one significant issue with which I disagree, and the reason that I won't be able to support your proposed budget, and that is with regard to item 51.310, legal fees. Your budget proposes to take that from $60,000 to $90,000. I can't support that, and I will tell you the reasons for that. In fact, I would far prefer to reduce that from $60,000 to $40,000 and to take the $20,000 savings and apply it to line item 58.210 radio upgrade. And I'll give you some of my thoughts or reasons for my opposition to that. The 2014 proposed budget, the one that is originally proposed, not Mr. Banske's substitute. If you look at that on page but the proposed budget for the municipal court, 51,200 is on page 2, I believe. We're proposing to spend $9,000 for the municipal court. That's money for legal services. The legal fees amount, 51,310, as proposed, is $60,000. Mr. Banske proposed to take that to $90,000. And then there's a line item for legal fees to be reimbursed, which is a new thing, which is $3,000. If you take the budget that Clerk Treasurer Salentine put before us and put on the back table, 9 plus 60 plus 3 is $72,000 that we're budgeting for legal services. I believe, Joe, you didn't touch the 9 or the 3, so you're proposing 102, correct, instead of 72 total for legal services. And here's my concern about it. If you look at, and we've talked a bit about historical norms, 2002 through 2009, that 6-year interval, the town spent in total $235,022, an average of $39,170 in pocket change per year, a little less than $40,000 per year. In 2011, We spent 241,000 plus in 2012. The number I had is 254,870, I think, on something that Clerk Salentine presented. She had 254 something. I mean, call it $250,000. Close enough. We spent more money in 2011 alone than we did in the 6 years from 2004 through 2009 for attorney's fees. We spent more in 2012 than we did in that 6-year interval. We're not going to dig too deep in the weeds. There were some reasons that was necessarily so. Not to that level of excess in my opinion, but some reasons necessarily so. I want to get back to closer to that norm. I think that number should be 40,000 plus 9 plus 2, which is 52,000. Our historical norm was less than 40. I can't support $102,000, so that's the primary reason that I cannot support that part of the budget. But that said, there are a couple of things that I frankly like about it. I'm glad to see that you decided to put in your budget money back into radio upgrade. A little bit of the history on that, and Chief Buchholz could explain that better, but we will have no option to upgrade our communications system for our fire department and ambulance service so that we're compatible for county-wide dispatch. I don't presuppose to know all of the details of that completely, but the equipment and installation cost on that, Chief Buchholz has spent a tremendous amount of time, and I think Supervisor Bankse mentioned that will be in excess of $300,000. And that's a bill that's coming due next year that's going to have to be paid. The town, and I commend board members and stuff who supported this in 2011, 2012, and 2013, set aside as a capital outlay $50,000 in each of those years. So $150,000 was set aside. That's effectively laying in our general treasury, if you will. Has not been spent, but earmarked it for that purpose. The budget before us only has $35,000, the one that Clerk Treasurer Salentine presented. I want to take the $20,000 from legal fees and move it over there to increase that to 55, so we can have 205 instead of 185 set aside for a $300,000 bill that is coming this year. The board in 2014, according to Chief Buchholz, who's ever serving on this board, is going to have to face the issue of how we pay for that radio upgrade. That's not sufficiently provided for tonight. That will be left for another day. So that's the primary reason, as a matter of priorities, that I can't support the alternative that you proposed, Joe, because I far prefer to spend the money for something other than legal fees, because I think an awful lot of that has been spent unnecessarily and wastefully by the town of Waukesha.
Mr. Fisher, you said a couple of times 20,000. If you reduce the legal fees to 40,000, that would reduce it by 50,000 according to this budget, this new revised budget. So are you saying take the $50,000 reduction and put it into radio upgrades?
No, and I probably said it in a confused way. I'm saying I cannot support Supervisor Bankse's motion to put 30 more into legal fees. My preference, which is not before us at this point in time, would be to reduce it by 20.
I understand what you're saying, but Mr. Banske's budget here has 90 in it for legal. So if you want to reduce it to 40, you're going to reduce it by 50,000.
Vis-a-vis his proposal.
Correct. Which is what there's a motion on the floor for.
Right. And this proposal, again, just to recap it, I mean, it does put money back into the radio dispatch. It puts that number where we would now have $200,000 through 2014 allocated to acquire that equipment. And that number is included still having the $90,000 for legal on top of the municipal dollars are there, that's a municipal court. I'm not, the $60,000 that I'm saying it takes to operate the town, from a legal standpoint, it's the same number I represented last year. I'm simply adding 30 grand because I think we still have some legal work in front of us with the town of Brookfield and with the city water issue. And that's how I come to my 90. It does not affect anything to do with municipal court. We're gonna give tickets, you're gonna go to court, we're gonna pay the attorney to be there. That's just the process. So I think that, I hope we're under, heck, I'd love to spend 50 grand or 40 grand in legal fees. I just don't think that you can use $2,002 and buy the same gallon of milk or the gallon of gas, and I don't believe you can buy the same legal services in time and rate that you could back then, even in 08, 09. I just don't think that that's something that we can accomplish. We can certainly be diligent in how we engage our attorney, what we have them do, how we work together to avoid using them. And that is something that in April, every year you get to hold the board members accountable for how they exercised their use of your tax money and what strategies they embarked on to represent the town.
I appreciate where you're headed with that, Joe. There are many towns around us that operate on a budget of between $10,000 and $20,000 for their normal day-to-day attorney invoicing. And while I like some of the items in your proposal, the attorney's fees is a big one that sticks out for me also. Mr. Laska?
I would like to thank Joe for his extra effort in tweaking what we worked on in the workshop. His modifications and adjustments I do strongly support, and I do strongly support the legal fee aspect. A big concern of mine, folks, is simply protection for our town. We are going through some very traumatic times as far as I'm concerned. The money may very well be needed to continue that protection. That is why I support the legal fees. It does not mean we have to spend it, but I want to be a little comfortable, personally, that the money is there, and we can call on it to carry on. Thank you.
May I make just one more comment on
Yes.
the legal fees, and we'll move on. For those of you who know me, you know that I'm passionate about this issue. And part of my concern or perspective, and again, we're looking forward. I've been on the board since April of 2011, and there are some good reasons for the amount of money we spent in 2011 and 2012. The factual reality, spending basically $250,000 in each of those years for attorney's fees. For over 7 attorneys, we spent more money, more of your tax money in 2011 and 2012 for attorneys than we paid in salaries and wages to all of the town of Waukesha employees. Think about it. Those aren't my priorities, and that's why I'm passionate about that issue, and I've kind of been waging this battle to try to take that number down. More money for the town attorney than basically for 7 full and part-time employees of the town of Waukesha. Those aren't my priorities.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Supervisor Bankse,
Yes.
Supervisor Fisher,
No.
Supervisor Laska,
Yes.
Chairman Merrick,
No.
Supervisor Wolf,
Yes.
motion approved.
Then we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Good evening, everybody. I know. We pay you by the